This hopefully will be of interest to you. It's really just an update to let you understand, I suppose, the types of things that we as an organisation have been covering off over the last year in our pursuit of extra support for GIST patients. Obviously, we have an ambition to try and stimulate interest in research projects, and where possible, we're aiming to be a charity that can also offer funding for research projects, which is why obviously we've been nagging on about fundraising activities for some while now, but we've actually made some quite significant progress with the help of many of our patients, and one patient in particular. So obviously, hopefully most of you know who we are. We're a network of patients and carers, and our whole existence is to help GIST patients and their families and friends. And all of us who are trustees are connected to GIST patients. Either we are a patient or we're a relative of a patient or a friend of a patient. Sorry, we've got a new one who's a friend. So the sorts of things that we offer. We have a helpline which I would imagine most of you have used at some point. I know it was my first contact with GIST Support UK. My daughter was diagnosed, didn't know what to do for quite a long time, and ringing that helpline and getting through to Judith was our first ray of hope in this situation we suddenly found ourselves in. Obviously, we believe that because patients with this diagnosis are rare, it's quite difficult. You don't, in the normal scheme of things, naturally meet other GIST patients. So these meetings that we convene at regional sites around the country, the whole idea is to bring you together so that you can start to feel some comfort by meeting other people who've experienced the same thing. I know we've personally found it really useful, which is why we're so keen to make sure that it continues, and hopefully your feedback will support that view. We have this private online discussion group. We refer to it as the listserv because that's the name it's been given, but it is for patients and their carers who feel they would like, at a moment's notice, maybe to ask a question. They're not going to see their doctor for a while, and I've got a concern, a worry. I'd like to just find out, did anyone else experience this? And it's a means of asking that type of question. Whatever time of day it is, you've got that question. And very soon afterwards, you will get some responses from people who generally have experienced exactly the same thing. We've got Facebook and Twitter communities. Not every patient or carer wants to be on our listserv. They feel they'd prefer to be in a sort of a community of Facebook and Twitter communities. So we have those platforms if people would like to use them. Obviously, we produce booklets and information, and obviously one initiative that I've been very much involved in over the last few years has been the Paul's GIST initiative, which was really to try and draw attention and focus to the needs of the patients who are either children or adults diagnosed with the wild type form of GIST, for whom there aren't any specific treatments that are working properly at the moment. There's no particular cure. So what we want really is an imatinib type solution for the wild type GIST patients. So in terms of what we do, continued, obviously we aim to raise awareness. If the general public in this country have not heard of GIST, well, that's kind of understandable because there aren't that many patients. But when there are doctors in this country who are GPs or whatever, and they're presented with a patient that has symptoms that ultimately turn out to be a GIST, for them not to be aware that GIST exists in the first place is obviously not particularly helpful. So by raising awareness, we're hoping that people who are presenting with symptoms of GIST, through time, we can actually make it so that there is more knowledge, more understanding about this disease, and actually that people are dealt with appropriately more swiftly. I mean, there's lots of campaigns ongoing at the moment to try and help with different types of cancers, and early diagnosis is obviously the best way to try and do that. So our desire to raise awareness is completely in keeping with NHS England's policy of trying to raise awareness early. Because if a GIST is small and it's removed surgically and it hasn't spread, well, the outlook is extremely positive. So that's what we're trying to raise awareness for, really. We aim to represent patients' interests. So as Nick mentioned earlier, nice appraisals, and we also are quite in evidence at relevant international and national meetings. So, for example, there was East Midlands sarcoma meeting last year that we attended, and we are at the British Sarcoma Group meetings. We go to the Sarcoma Patients Euronet meetings in Europe. They're in a different city each time, and all the time it's networking with more patients, more doctors, and some of those specialists that appear at these things have got potentially new treatments that they're investigating for GIST. So it's useful for us to maintain contact and understand those things for our patients. In this country, the work we've been doing over the past few years, prompted really by our need to get something going for the paediatric and wild-type GIST patients, has prompted development of an infrastructure, I suppose you would call it, that will support research. So when we started Paul's GIST, there wasn't a clinic, but having been to the only clinic in the world, which was in America, and being so impressed by what they were doing there, we felt we needed one here, and we now have one here. And we've had 6 clinics, and so far 40 patients have been through those clinics. But on our agenda for that was also the need to have a tissue bank. A tissue bank didn't exist, but if researchers want to research this cancer, they need access, easy access to the raw materials to actually do the research on. And our tissue bank, which is now obviously established, it will be moving in the not too distant future, is the start of us being able to assist researchers by having easy access to the materials they need. We lobby for the right of GIST patients. We'd never done that before, really, but last year saw us actually getting experience in that area, quite considerable experience. And we obviously work with pharmaceutical industry. We're working to try and understand, well, to raise the profile of the needs of GIST patients, to try and put ourselves on the agenda so that pharmaceutical companies do recognise that we have a need, in addition to all the other cancers that are currently having drug treatments developed for them. So, and fundraising, obviously we can go into more detail on that. So that's what we do. Now, as a summary of what happened last year, it was quite an extraordinary year. Obviously, we started out with our standard plan, which is we're going to have 2 patient meetings, and we're going to be attending these various conferences to try and gather more information, etc. And we convened a thing which we hadn't done before. We've actually now got a medical advisory board, because we felt, you know, we've got a tissue bank. If a researcher was to come along and say, we'd like to access the tissue, we as individual trustees aren't in a position to evaluate that research proposal and understand if it's worthy to access this rare commodity, which is GIST tissue samples. So our medical advisory board, which is chaired by Professor Ian Judson, we held our first meeting, 13th of January. It was unlucky for some, I suppose, because that was the same day that they announced that the drug regorafenib was going to be removed from the Cancer Drugs Fund. So the meeting was kind of hijacked by, what are we going to do about this, because this is serious. Now, in January also that year, we were absolutely blown away by the fact that one of our patients, and she's in the room, I believe, somewhere. Yeah, stand up, Emma. Emma had actually been a patient in a meeting like this just not long before this happened. It was actually at the East Midlands sarcoma meeting. She approached us and said that she worked for a company that every year chose a charity, and she felt that she was going to explain to her company that she was a GIST patient. She hadn't up until that point explained her condition, and she wanted to submit us as the organisation for them to support over the coming year by raising funds. I believe we were one of 11 charities that the people in that company, UK TV is the company, suggested, and Emma's support. I think, did you get 48% of the votes for the charity? Something of that order. So it was quite a resounding vote for Emma and for Just Support UK to be the charity partner. I can go into a bit more detail about that later on, and I will do. But to be announced as anybody's charity partner was something we hadn't had before, and to be announced by such a prestigious organisation, you know, quite amazing. Then, because this issue happened about regorafenib, in February we launched this campaign called our 100,000 Voices campaign to put up a fight really and say we can't do without this drug, we need it. So while that happened, those were all different things to anything we'd ever done before. So the start to 2015 was quite different, but our normal plan continued. So we had patient meetings in Manchester and in Southampton. And then later on, for the first time, we had a meeting in Scotland, and that was because the feedback we'd received from patients, some of them who'd come from Scotland to Newcastle meetings and Manchester meetings, a bit disgruntled that as a UK charity we hadn't actually stepped into and had a meeting in Scotland. So we had our first meeting in Edinburgh, and it was a really very good meeting. Everyone really enjoyed it, and so we will be doing it in future. We grew our regional patient representation. Now, as patients, we all go to, and carers, we all go to hospitals on a regular basis, and we started this process last year where we were just asking if you were willing to take some of our literature, and then when you go to your hospital appointment, just ask if they could. I mean, there's various ways they do it in hospitals. In the Bristol hospital where I go, they've got like loads of books the moment you go into the oncology department, and it's like a library. And I went to see the lady that managed the library, and she put our eating after surgery for GIST, actually not in a GIST or cancer section, she put it in a section with other sort of gastrointestinal bits, and it's flying off the shelves because not only GIST patients use it, anyone who's had stomach surgery is finding it useful. So at the moment we've got, Sheena, is it 26 patients that are taking literature to hospitals around the country, but we have got some gaps. And in the vestibule between here and the outside bit, there's an A3, A5, no, bigger than that, A1, an A1 pad, which has got a map showing where we've currently got coverage, and where, if any of you see there's a gap that you could fill, we'd be really very grateful if you could help us by taking a few leaflets each time you go and just checking that they're topped up each time you go. So through time, the aim of this in terms of awareness, we want a situation to be not like it was when we were diagnosed. When we went to the hospital, the doctors, they were brilliant doctors, and we can't say anything other than that, but they hadn't got experience of GIST, and they weren't able to give us instantly answers to the questions that we had. So the book that we've prepared, Beginner's Guide to GIST, is so that patients in that situation, when they're diagnosed and their doctor is talking to them about it, they can also give them that information, which will answer a lot of questions and hopefully offer some support at the very earliest stages of their diagnosis. Obviously, we talked about research and Project Mitigate. This is a project which, if you haven't heard about, has anybody heard about Mitigate in this room? Or? Okay, Judith is probably the best person to give you a brief summary what Mitigate is. Basically, this is a project which is happening in Europe. There aren't any UK specialists involved as such, but Judith and Professor Judson were both invited to be special observers about what's going on. So as a special observer, Judith, could you please give us a quick update on what's happening with Project Mitigate?
You can access their website if you just go on Mitigate Project. Jane's got the names the wrong way around. It's German, so it's Mitigate Project. They're looking at various ways of improving and updating treatment for metastatic GIST, and it's funded by Europe. I mean, let's stay in Europe. But it is European money, and they have said that when their trials open, that patients from the UK will be eligible. You have to get yourself to Innsbruck, where it's all based, but they're looking at innovative radiotherapy, sort of a bit like RFA, but more focused, so they can actually zap tumours in the liver particularly, which they couldn't use ordinary RFA for because of where they are. And various other strands to this programme, and they've got, quite unusually, a team of doctors, physicians, surgeons, engineers, chemists, all working together to try and improve metastatic GIST care. You look at the website, they say they'll update it. It hasn't been updated for a while, but they're hoping to start the trials, I think, later this year. So watch their website if you're interested. It's for patients who have failed at least 2 TKI treatments. We shall just have to wait and see how it develops. A lot of money has gone in from Europe, so it's let's hope something really good comes out of it.
Thank you.
Let's stay in Europe.
Yeah. As I mentioned, obviously on the research side of things, the Pulse GIST clinics, we've had 3 of those in 2015. Spin-offs from this, we've managed to collect some wild-type GIST cells where we've had advanced warning of operations. Not a huge number, but I think it's about 7 or 8 samples so far. And in addition to going to the tissue bank, those are also going to a couple of teams who are attempting to grow those cells outside of the body in a dish. And I believe we're at the stage where they have got some cells growing, but they have yet to be absolutely definitively agreed that they are the wild-type cells that are growing and not some surrounding tissue. And obviously we have made contact with GIST researchers. We're pushing on every angle, really. I'd really love us to be in a position where we could be getting some kind of immunotherapy research going on. But we have, in the past few weeks, received 2 research proposals for wild-type GIST, one of which is to investigate metabolomics, genomics, a whole raft of different things for SDH-deficient tumours. And the other one is to look for new therapeutic targets in wild-type GIST. So the money that we've been raising for research will be, in addition to funding the clinic, for example, which is what it has done over the past few years, will start to be used now to support funding of these research projects. So, what we dreamed about 6 years ago when this all started is beginning to actually, it's a slow process, but we're getting there. We are now in a position to at least start to say we can give some money to people who are actually concentrating exactly on what we want. The National GIST Tissue Bank, we've had a bit of a lull because we want to move it to the Royal Marsden as its permanent home, but basically one of the people who was a significant person in organising this wasn't available for some while, but by the end of March we should have arranged a meeting to agree the timetable for the transfer of the bank. The logic behind having a transfer, it was set up in Newcastle as an absolute favour to us by Professor Andrew Hall, who could see what we needed, but obviously it needs to, he does that sort of thing for other people as well, and he can't run all of their banks, so it has to go somewhere where there's a full team that can manage it. As I say, a significant amount of the money that we've got from another source will be used to fund that bank in that location. So in terms of the other thing that happened, which was a significant thing last year, obviously we ran this campaign, and fortunately the Cancer Drugs Fund agreed that regorafenib should stay on the list. And in their summary at the end, they did mention our campaign. So while it wasn't the only factor making the deciding decision, obviously that the drug itself stood up to testament as being effective in GIST, we think the fact that we were able to make such a noise about it didn't go unnoticed. We told everyone how much we needed that drug. So regorafenib is now available in England, Scotland and Wales. Obviously there's currently a consultation going on about the new Cancer Drugs Fund, how that will work. and we're involved with that. We don't know what's going to happen yet, but we've put in our views on what we would like to happen moving forward. We represented GIST patients at a whole raft of different relevant conferences and meetings. And obviously on the fundraising side for research, the organisation UK TV that Emma works for, if you'd like to come up the front and talk about it, basically they chose us as their first, we were the first, it's the first time for us of being a corporate fundraising partner. And we didn't know what to expect, but they're a very energetic and risk-taking selection of people who totally embraced the fact that they needed to help Emma and help us as well. So Emma can give you a brief summary of what they did over the year. Here you go, Emma.
Is that better? Oh yes, yeah. That is. I think I was here about a year ago telling you that we'd been the nominated charity and offering anybody the chance to abseil off the orbit, which you can see on the right-hand picture. Nick, well, I didn't really give him the choice, I just made him do it. So we had various events throughout the year which all raised money for GIST, involving people within the company and also friends, relatives and anybody else we could call on, really. So we had about 50 people go off the orbit in London, which is the massive structure by the Olympic Park, the highest man-made structure that you can. It's not even an abseil; it's a. Yeah, because you don't go against it; you just drop. So we did that. We did. Any other pictures? I don't know. I'm going to flick to the next one. No. We did a cycle. So we had 29 people cycle from London to Versailles in 3 days. I drove the support van. I didn't cycle. There we did firewalking.
That's so what I mean about dangerous.
Had people firewalk. We also had a dragon boat race. We had people dragon boat racing. We did immense amounts of cake baking and eating, which is why we have to do some of the fitness things just to work off the cake. We had quizzes, both industry quizzes in the media industry as well as internal quizzes, favours auctions, where people, offer to iron shirts for a month or, whatever else it was to raise money. So we were...
Well, basically, we were invited a few weeks ago to go to the offices there. Nick and I went. We weren't really sure what to expect. And the whole company was there for this presentation, and we were presented with a cheque for £80,000. Now this basically opens up a whole range of new opportunities for us. I mean, we've been worried about how we would fund the tissue bank. This secures the future of the tissue bank, and it also means we're in a position now to seriously talk about offering some seed funding for these research projects that we've been approached about. So obviously the mainstay of what we've been doing and will continue to do are our patient meetings. Those are funded by a completely different source, but this extra funding now enables us hopefully to start looking to the future and perhaps considering ourselves a charity that can offer medical research funding for GIST. So that's really, we can't thank you enough.
And the other thing we're doing is we're producing a video for doctors, which is going to be certified as part of their continuous professional development to help identify GIST. So it's something that will go out to all GPs, and if they watch it, then they'll get a tick for their CPD, so that should encourage them to watch it, and it will talk about and use some case studies, including myself and some others, I think, to talk about GIST diagnosis and how it can be missed and the signs to look out for, because obviously our expertise is sort of in making telly, so doing something like that is something that we felt we could practically do for
Yeah.
GIST as well. And I don't know if...
Professor Judson's heavily involved in that, and as we've got like a specialist GP who's an educationalist as well, who's kind of advising, and it's all in sync with the Royal Society of General Practitioners. So I don't know what the timeframes are, but hopefully over the next 6 to 9 months we'll have a video that can be then used to distribute to GPs to help with them recognising, could it be GIST? Anyway, thank you very much for that. So obviously this unexpected but most welcome funding, I'm sure it will get swallowed up very rapidly because research projects basically cost a lot of money. But as I said, it does secure the future of the tissue bank, and we can offer research funding, and this video will obviously help to raise awareness and improve education. So it was a very fortunate meeting, and I can't thank Emma enough for putting her hand up and saying, I think we could do something to help here. So this is where I suppose we come back to you, just to think, could we prick your imagination? Is there something you can do? Because alongside what happened with UK TV, we very recently were very sad because we lost one of our trustees, Debbie Mitchell. And her friends rang me out of the blue and said, we want to make some money for you, we can do that, we want to do something to remember Debbie. And it turns out that one of them worked for a company called Persimmon Homes, and they have a charitable grant giving thing. So they made an application on our behalf saying they wanted some funding in memory of Debbie so that they could put it towards our research grant funding. And Persimmon Homes selected their application, and all of a sudden Paul's GIST was given £1,000. I say we didn't physically do anything, they did it for us, which was really helpful. And likewise, this last Saturday, somebody I worked with probably 25 years ago contacted me out of the blue. I mean, I don't really see them ever, and they said, I'm now captain of a local golf club, and I've been told I've got to have a charity for the year. And so would you like it to be Paul's GIST? And we said, yes, we'd love that. So we went over there, Karen and I, to talk for about 20 minutes about what it was. And they did a collection, and all of a sudden we came away with £510. So that was very, very unexpected, but very nice. So we as an entity, this is Gist Support UK, including Paul's GIST, would like to be in a position moving forward that we can be stimulating more interest in research. We can only do that if we have funds. And so if there's anybody here that works for a company, we've got a list out there on the table just out by the door of the top 100 companies, for example, that that actually gave to charitable purposes last year. If there's anybody in your network that might work for those companies that could, when they are asked to sort of make a suggestion on which charity, if they could mention us and they'd be willing to do that, it could potentially result in more funds that could be put towards our research fund to benefit GIST patients. So that was that bit. Right, this is related to the singing bit. Now, if nobody wants to participate, I suppose that's fine. But it would be nice if some of you would be willing. And probably best if Karen comes and tells us all what it's about.
Hello? Oh, good. Okay, so the 500 Club was an idea that I had and discussed with Jane quite a long time ago. And the reason we thought about the 500 Club was that we were talking about research and clinical trials and all sorts of very expensive projects. And someone banded a figure around, a few medical people banded a figure around of £250,000. That we might need to raise if we were looking at this in any serious way. So £250,000 for a small charity like ours is an awful lot of money. And we were thinking, how can we go about raising this amount of money? And I thought, well, maybe £250,000 seems a large sum, but if we could split that into segments, we might have a better chance of achieving that goal. So hence the idea of the 500 Club. What we are planning to do, with the help of a company in London that are going to do some work for us for free, which is really fantastic of them, is ask 500 people or groups, so it could be clubs, it could be associations, it could be groups of friends, to raise £500 for us over a 12-month period. And as I said, we're looking at launching this campaign shortly. And to try and launch the campaign and get some interest in it, I thought, what can we do to stimulate this? So I thought 500, and I thought instantly of the Proclaimers. I think you're probably all aware of the Proclaimers, you know, the Scottish ginger twins. Ring a bell with anybody? I think so, yeah. They had a very successful song a few years ago called I'm Gonna Be, and it's called 500 Miles. And it sort of seemed to link really well with the idea of the 500 Club. So I contacted the Proclaimers and Warner Music and their management team. And it took a while, but they've kindly agreed that we can use this song royalty-free for the next 12 months for our campaign. And we're going to make a video to launch the campaign. And we've been very busy asking lots of friends and supporters and people that we know to film a segment of it. So we've been handing out lyrics from the song. People are videoing it, and where they're going to put all these segments together, and it's going to help us launch the 500 Club. Okay? So we were wondering, as you're all a bit of a captive audience this afternoon, whether you might be prepared to sing along to a verse of the song, and we're going to put the lyrics up on the screen, okay? And then we are going to use it, hopefully, for our campaign. So Jane's going to show you a clip from, are you going to show the Doctor Who one, Jane?
Yeah.
I'm a big Doctor Who fan, and when David Tennant left Doctor Who, he wanted to have a bit of fun. So he and the cast of Doctor Who got in touch with the Proclaimers, of whom he's a big fan, and they made a video of 500 Miles, and Jane's going to show it to you now to give you a bit of a flavour of the sort of thing that we're going to hack together
but the
with
actual
this.
singing gets dubbed out,
Yeah.
and it is
No one's going to hear you sing, don't panic. You will be dubbed out by the Proclaimers.
and you'll only be on there for a... Where's the volume? Oh, this worked perfectly earlier. I don't know why the volume's not working.
When I wake up,
Oh,
well, I know I'm gonna be the man who
right,
wakes up
stop.
next to you.
Right. That's better.
When I wake up, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who wakes up next to you. When I go out, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you.
That's on full volume. I can't believe it.
Drunk, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who gets drunk next to you. And if I haver, yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who's havering to you. But I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more just to be the man who walked 1,000 miles to fall down at your door. When I'm walking, yes, I know I'm gonna be the man who's working hard for you. And when the money comes in for the work I do, I'll pass almost every penny on to you. When I come home, oh, I know I'm gonna be the man who comes back home to you. And if I broke, well, I know I'm gonna be the man who's going over you. But I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more just to be a man who walks 1,000
do or should I stop? Stop. Right, okay. Anyway, that is the general gist of what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Excuse the pun.
Sorry about that. So, if there's anybody who doesn't want to participate, obviously just drop out now. That'll be fine. We won't hold it against you. I've got to try and figure out how I get out of this now. There we go. We have got some words.
Yeah, we'll get the lyrics up, and what we'd like you to do is actually sing a chorus of the song, which is I will walk 500 miles, that bit. Okay, so it's only really 4 lines, so it's quite simple. We had over 100 people doing this at our local village hall the other week, and it was quite fun, I think, Jane, wasn't it? So we're going to get it pieced together, and we hope it will be fun. It's going to be professionally edited, and it is going to help us launch this campaign. And we are aiming high with this £250,000, but Jane and I believe we can do it, and we're pretty determined. So we're going to give it our best shot, and we really do want to raise this money because the answer is in research. The answer to the issue is in research. We need to do this, okay? So would everybody like to join in, or are there anybody who finds it a bit challenging?
Where do you want us?
Do you want to stand up?
If everyone could just stand up.
I'll tell you what, we'll take the middle of the room as being people that want to participate in this. So if you want to participate,
who doesn't,
fill up this table, that table, and the gap in between.
Come on, ladies. Don't be shy. I can tell you want to do it. Come on.
We can have a practice run as well.
We'll have a quick practice. We'll go through one verse, and if you want to sing along to the first verse, you can, and then we'll go into the chorus just to see how you feel about it, and then we'll do a proper film, okay?
This table can stay seated if you want. That's fine. Yeah.
Well, I know I'm gonna be the man.
The volume's not like it was earlier. I don't know what's happened.
Yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes
Can you
along.
hear that?
Not really.
Well, I know I'm
Something's gone wrong with the volume.
the man who gets drunk next to you.
What can we do? Volume.
Yeah, I know I'm gonna
If you want to practice, have a practice
Yeah, go
run.
on, sing along. Just this practice.
Lead it,
There was
won't it?
alcohol in the lunch, so you're all relaxed, and you can all sing because you're all relaxed because of the alcohol in the lunch.
Right.
Right, okay, so if you want to sing along, what should we
I
go back
reckon
to
it's
the
because it's
beginning?
internet.
Can we go back to the beginning, and then
gonna
we'll
get-
just
I'm gonna
run
get
through it?
some
I think
other
we
lyrics.
can everyone hear that? Everyone's got a good, you can hear most
Let's
of
have
what's
some
saying.
waving of arms.
This is it,
and
wave arms
you've got to
in the
record
air,
this.
all this sort of thing. I'm going to do it, don't worry.
Right, let's see if I can
Sing
get
as
it.
well. Jane's going to film it, aren't you?
Yeah, but I'm just trying to find something that's got the tune and the lyrics that's maybe louder than that one. And Proclaimers. Not that one. There was some that we found last
It
night.
was on YouTube, but it was in the room, wasn't it?
Was it?
Yeah.
Right, let me go to YouTube then. Sorry. Slight technical hitch here. Proclaimer, YouTube, lyrics.
Yeah, I mean, what we've been doing, we've been filming it on iPhones because we tried to keep it standard. Would you suggest that would be better? So, Nick, don't you want to join in? You would rather film it? Yeah.
when I wake up. Well, I know I'm gonna be the
I
man
think that's
who
as good as
wakes
it's
up
going
next
to
to
get, isn't it?
Sorry.
Jane's
There we
got
are,
a
that
phone.
one.
Probably better. Right, go on then.
So quiet. This was really loud when I did it earlier. I don't understand.
It doesn't really matter about that. As long as everyone can hear it, we can just get on with it. And
I go out. Yeah, I know I'm gonna be the man who goes along with you. If I get drunk, well, I know
no, I'm gonna be the man who gets
You've got to
drunk
keep
to
your
you. Hang on a
eyes
moment.
braced and still.
If I'm gonna be. But I would walk 500 miles and I would walk 500 more just to be the man who walked 1,000 miles to fall down at your
I don't want to
door.
block anyone out.
Get up and then film the next verse.
You're not going to be still up there, are you?
Right. Yeah, the chorus.
I know I'm gonna be the man who's growing old with you.
But I will walk 500 miles and I will walk 500 more just to be the man who walked 1,000 miles to fall down at your door.
La la la,
La da da da, da 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 da, da 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 da, da 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 da, da 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 da. Brilliant.
Thank
Well done.
you.
Thank you very much, everyone, for that. That's fine. Have you managed to film that?
Oh, I didn't get